Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I had prepared a presentation. I work in a law department, but I am a philosopher, and I have been working for the Great Ape Project since Peter Singer asked me to get involved with the Spanish branch in 1998. So since then, I've been studying evolutionary biology and everything about primates and animals, because I think it's embarrassing how little some people who in philosophy work on animal ethics really know about the animals. I will explain to you some of my views, and maybe you can see why it seems so urgent and overwhelming to me. Okay, so my plan is to give you an overview of why this group of animals are on the stream of reproductive strategies, and then maybe now I won't have time to say much about death and suffering, but I'm going to leave the slides, and then we can, in the Q&A, talk about those things, and then focus on captivity. Because most of the times, when we discuss animals and humans, people say, well, but for the humans or for the animals, it's also quite bad to do this and that. In the case of apes, there are many reasons why sometimes it's not that we have all the reasons not to kill and torture humans, we have them not to kill and torture chimpanzees. It's that sometimes we have additional reasons why it's worse for the other hominids than it is for humans. And I use the word hominid because when the Great Ape Project started in '93, it had only become widely accepted with scientists to call them hominids, but now it's like, you can check Wikipedia, and of course they are hominids, like it's in the normal way. Okay, so I don't know how much people know about this, but animals are on this spectrum that in the 60s used to be called R and K, and since then it's been called slow and fast, with the slow being the cleverer, so that sometimes can cause confusion. Okay, so these ones there, they have a high risk of death because they reproduce massively, and all of their offspring except for one would die. But they don't have the nociceptors, they don't have the emotional capacities to engage in great suffering. On the other side, they normally don't die, they are strong, they defend their offspring fiercely, they are intelligent, they normally don't die, but they can suffer hugely, like us. So this correlates with a massive maternal investment in these creatures that explains the cognitive development, the emotions that are attached to such a big investment, so many years of care, and with the type of brains they have, and so on. In fact, there are loads of things that you can say about great apes, the great delphinids, which are orcas, bottlenose, false orcas, belugas, and so on. So you see that they are big, they are, which is correlates with longevity. They have mirror spindle neurons that the others don't have. They are sexually dimorphic, obviously, because the investment is so big that it's very easy for the males to exploit the females. And they have a lot of sensors for pain, nociceptor. So cognitively, many of them are self-recognizing. They pass the marshmallow test, so they can defer gratification, not eat something that they desire to eat because it would hurt other members of their group, for example. They have imagination, which is relevant for captivity. They can imagine themselves somewhere other than where they are, and desire to be back in the jungle where they were. And they have all these other capacities. And of course, emotionally, they are so emotional. Why, for example, why do you see only gorillas with brown hair in the zoos? Because all the mountain gorillas that were captive and taken, they died of sadness. Many of them just died on the way there, but many of them just couldn't bear it. So they are very, very emotional animals that suffer a lot. And because the maternal investment is so big, last with women, we care very much about who we mate with, because when you are going to make a massive investment of spending all these years on your child, you don't want to have an offspring with anyone. So for all of them, forced intercourse is traumatic, and forced separation is traumatic because they have these emotions. And behaviorally, we can see they are different. The epimelectic behavior is when they stay with somebody that is dying, quite impractically, or with dead bodies. So they have different attitudes than other animals about death, about encountering bones, and so on. And they are, like you could say, for the low people, more deontological. No? So they have more respect for property, more systems to make sure that the others tell the truth when they speak, punishments for those that lie, rules for fair play, and so on. So this is, for example, the gestures for sharing that are very similar for us, for permission, for accepting if you have made an effort creating something or getting a fruit is yours, and so they can beg, and you can say, okay, go and have it. And of course, all of this is a big investment that pays off because they live very long. So, for example, 2 years of the elephant pregnancy, but then 6 years of breastfeeding, stay with their mom until they are 16, but then they can live to 80. So the massive investment pays off later. No? So that is a huge part of their time where the mother is telling them everything about their society, what to eat in every season, how to use all the tools, how to survive in nature. And because of that maternal effort that is required for them to be so devoted to the children's education, so they then have interspecific empathy. No? So this is Snowflake with Peace dog, but in general there's this caring behavior and sort of generally emotional capacity to put themselves in the shoes of others, to understand their needs, that their needs are different from them. I mean, so many of the things that we value in humans come from the immense maternal investment that they have made, and that's why they are so similar. And of all of the animals, the great apes are really on the stream. So you can see, compared to humans that all interspersed births by 3 or 4 years, orangutans 8 and 9, all the others are, even the investment is bigger. So the love for the offspring is bigger. So all of the things that we value in humans that emerge from this in evolutionary terms are likely to be larger too. So I'm going to skip about death because I'm running out of time, and focus on captivity, right? So why do I think that the law has to say something about not maintaining the situation of breeding these slaves for us to go 5 minutes or 2 minutes, look at the monkey, and go on. So first, for us, we already live indoors by choice. And if you compare the life of somebody before they went to prison and after, it is sometimes very similar. A similar room, sometimes, people even get a better room, no? In Spain and in Europe, the prisons have now improved enormously. We have swimming pools, we have gyms, they are very different. For them, imagine this is a picture of Big Windy in Impenetrable Park where the gorillas are, and that's where they end up. It's a massive change, from moving big kilometers, from having these views to this tiny cage. So of course, that alone already causes depression. And the zoos, what do? All of this that they are giving them. When it comes to physical exercise, you see that many people go to prison and they go to the gym and they get very fit. It's a known fact that the people exercise and focus on fitness in prison more than outside. For them, it's the opposite. Obesity is a massive problem. They don't move. They were walking many kilometers and now they are stuck there and depressed. So they have no desire to move either, and that is another thing that increases their mortality. Now, people go to prison and sometimes they come out with a degree. They come out better prepared to go and find a job. Later, many of them are reading a book for the very first time. It is an improvement on their capacity to deal once they come out, which they will do one day, unlike them. For them, it's the opposite. They have developed through, so all these millions of years of evolution and then of cultural evolution for them, developing all these tools, all these medicines, all these ways of dealing with the environment, is all gone. They enter the zoo, you can never take an animal from the zoo and put it back, never. Even the case of Pony, the orangutan that we rescue from a brothel, it's been many attempts, and she's been in forest school for more than 5 years now, she cannot go back. It's impossible, despite all the effort that has been put into looking after this 8-year-old orangutan. Is just irreversible. So it's a total loss for them. It's very different. Now, the damage that this causes, that has been studied by Lori Marino and other neuroscientists, is terrible. It's so big that you can look at an MRI and see the brain being damaged, the dendrites, how they have made photographs, she has made drawings to see the loss of dendrites, how there is this atrophy of their brain caused by all the stress that they are suffering, and the really boring environment for creatures like us, designed to be absorbing and learning and getting new experiences all the time. What do the zoos do? Solution. When in prisons, people make friends in prisons. They have loads of other prisoners to choose from, and they choose and sit with those that are psychologically compatible, because the great apes like us can have friends. For them, friends are very important. They find somebody that fits with them, and that is a feature of for slow developers. Manta rays, for example, they also have a companion that is not genetically related, and they see them in all parts of the ocean together. So getting friends is important. In prison, you have a lot to choose from. Many people come out with a friend. When people have a fight, the police, the guards go in there and stop the fight. In the zoo, no. They are confined with some creatures, a very small number that they haven't decided. Maybe they don't get along at all. And if they get into a fight, nobody is going to go in there and stop the fight. In fact, they even putting males and females together. So, of course, you are locked with your rapist sometimes forever and forced to procreate with this creature. And there's no escape. You cannot go away. The females in nature, if they get pregnant, if they feel threatened, they just go. They just go and escape. When the other one is sleeping or not looking, they just go. But here, it's like the wall behind them. There's nothing we can do. And we have discovered so many cases of horrific sexual abuse as it happens in human prisons, but here nobody does anything. In Emory University, one university, the Bonobo Brian, was sodomized and raped by his father, who was also deranged from captivity conditions. For 10 years, he was vomiting 50 times a day. The university, what do they do? Nothing. They give him medication. That's all they do. But, how can this happen? And for me, it is urgent that we have this law, because I can identify with these females, and, this life is horrific for them. And also for the prisoners, they know, okay, I committed this crime, now I have to go to prison for this time, I count my days, one day I go. They are there for life. They have no idea, which is why they are obsessed with escaping. Many times they try to escape, they die during the escape because they're so desperate. They will go into electrical wires, all kinds of things, and then if they fail, when you try something desperately to risk your life and then you fail and you fail, you become very depressed. So what do the zoos do? More medication, no? When the women have pregnancies in prison, what happens? Then many times they get more attention, more concern than if they were outside. They wouldn't be like doing drugs while they're pregnant, for example. There is supervision of what is happening to female inmates that are having a baby, and then they give birth in very good conditions in a hospital with attention and so on. With them, they become like an entertainment. No, everybody goes there, look at look at this one. They make her do the washing up and hang it up, for the public entertainment. And then so many babies are dead in zoos. Zoos are a factory of dead babies. The mothers have lost their culture. They had no idea what to do with. Sometimes female women had to be told and to explain to them that they're supposed to breastfeed when the baby cries. They don't know anything because they're cultural beings like us, so they know nothing. They just get stressed. The baby's crying. They don't know what is wrong with the baby. It's cold. Even with humans, it's difficult to understand a baby, but they have lost their culture, so they don't know. They just get very stressed, and sometimes they can't bear. They're already in a very bad psychological condition when they give birth, so many of them have postnatal depression, they reject the babies, but also the males around are there, and they can't take the baby away somewhere else in the forest to protect it. So, this one, for example, was banged on the head by some, male that is bored and aggressive, because captivity increases their aggressivity. So there are so many babies that are dead. There are also die more because they're all inbred, because they, the zoos have even been breeding them sometimes across subspecies, which is wrong, or even species. They have made bonobo and chimpanzee and so on, which doesn't happen in nature. But other times they just keep on breeding with the same family, siblings, So of course, a lot of the babies are born with lots of abnormalities and lots of problems. So this is like a horrific situation. For them, it's very, very painful. We know in nature that they can sort of push the dead baby because after all the investment, we are geared to love our babies. So they could go, sometimes for 2 weeks pushing the baby in the water, and the whole group will slow down to understand the mother needs time to let go. But in the zoos, this is terrible. I mean, in the case of Natalia, for example, that we have in Valencia Biopark, 7 months she was hanging onto the dead baby. It is, they have no distractions, they have no culture of support for distracting the babies, like, for example, was the chimpanzee, she knew that with a carer who lost the baby, that you're supposed to give them hugs and entertain them, distract them with different things so that you don't think about the past, because as we know ourselves, if something bad happens and we keep on thinking about this, we create like informational highways and we keep on going and we develop a tendency to go to the place of pain. So we need distraction to redirect in another direction of hope and different mental content. So, but you can't do that in a cell. There's no, what do we tell people when you have depression? Go into nature, go for a walk, change the scenery. They can't do any of that. They can't move. They can't change the scenery. It's all the same. So for them, the only thing they give medication. So with, I thought I had 7 reasons, but I think I have more than that. The people can go and read a book, say, okay, I'm going to go to prison, like many activists have done. Said, well, I took the opportunity to finish my paper. I did all of this, and quietly, they can do anything. They're like constantly, oh, look at this ape, look at this monkey, look at this. With everybody observing, this constant observation is known to increase their levels of stress, which are already very high, because when they have a nice place to go to, they go there away from the people looking. But of course, the zoos, force them into that by giving them only horrible alternative places to go than the one that is really close to the public, and of course the bedrooms are like horrible places as well. So solution, education. There was, this study of 1,200 hours. All of the apes study had signs of mental illness. The conclusion was that mental illness is endemic to captive hominids. It is there's so much research that nobody has contested that. It is, you see all the signs. I mean, the list of signs of mental illness, I can't even read this because you can read it yourself. It's so long, the things that they do. And after you have read about that, learn about this, you go to the zoo and you see it. Before, you go to the zoo and you don't realize, like you go to the delphinarium and you don't realize why are the dolphins with a big crease like this in the dolphinarium, but not in nature. Obviously, they're forced to live a vertical life where they have to follow instructions from the guy who trains them. So they end up living like that, and so they develop this double chin. And what people do, oh, look, the dolphin has a double chin, how funny, This is horrific what we're doing to them, causing them all this mental illness. And in the past, when we were very primitive, that was done. London was a place where people would go at mental hospital and go, oh, look at this one, only works in circles all the time. Oh, look at that one. We did this with humans, so, now we're doing with them, but it is barbaric, and we shouldn't be doing this. It's like, we have done so well with cats and dogs, not with dogs, but with the cats, with other animals in Spain. But this is like so primitive and like from another time, that how can we have on sort of other kinds of animals very progressive legislation and leaving these ones behind? For me, is unbelievable. This is the only solution that we are giving them. And then this is my final point. When the apes are in prison, because they are very frightening, they're very strong and they're very intelligent, nobody rescues them. There's been fires and the other animals were rescued, nobody dares to open the cage of the apes, so they let them burn. If there is a flood, the same thing. Either they get shot or they just let them drown. When there's been, for example, Harambe, the gorilla is famous because a boy fell in the enclosure and they shot him dead. But most of the family of Harambe had already been killed because of gas poisoning from chlorine poisoning. The cloud came and they were in the cage, nobody let them out. So the whole family, like 12 of them or so, they were affected by this, and the vast majority died. They are getting objects that are going around in the zoo, and they're so bored they ingest them. So some of them have lots of objects inside. They are like so bored with their intelligence in these little places that they do get these kind of things. And then whenever there is some problem with the general problem with the zoo, the apes are the last ones, because they're very scared. I mean, Pedro and several people from the Great Ape Project explained they were kidnapped by one of the rescue chimpanzees in Rheinfeld. So they can really outdo our cleverness when it comes to things. So the people are very frightened, and so they let them die. So, and of course, if they run away from these horrible places, they all get shot dead. So I'll finish. But for me, I hope you can understand why this is so frustrating that we have made so much progress with the other animals, and with a case that is so clear-cut. And I mean, the investment in the meat industry is phenomenal, but the zoos, why can't we stop this captive breeding for the 5-minute entertainment? Of course, we don't have anywhere to put them at the moment, but we can think ahead. That's how we make the laws. We say this is how things should be, and then there is a period of transition that the law allows for us to gradually move there. For example, stop producing more captive apes that can never go back to nature. Huh? And of course, apart from that, there's all the international agreements that we should make. And you say, oh, it's only 150. Well, we have counted more than 150, and we keep on finding more. I have put some slides at the beginning, for example, of apes that we rescue. I'll show you now, so I have a little bit of time left. Lulu, she was in a park. They were throwing stones at her. It was a terrible depression. Guillermo, we call him Guillermo of Monte Cristo because he was 14 years in a little cage in the Teide of Tenerife, with very hot in the summer, extremely cold in the winter, with a woman who took him because of the mother had depression after birth, and she was photophobic, so kept him in the dark as well because she thought the light was not good, so decided to keep him in the dark. When we found him, he already had like one eye missing, but we don't know what the story with that is. And it took us 2 years to rescue Guillermo. So there's a woman with no education that is keeping a chimpanzee in a cage that he can touch both sides of the cage. He was so small. He was being fed chocolates, Coca-Cola. It was like the woman had no idea how to deal with him. It should have been such a clear case. It was 2 years of constant going and coming. Also, yes, we do have some laws, but in Spain with the geographical, the autonomic legislation, it's very complicated because every region has a different animal law, so you can register one animal in one place and the other, so to benefit yourself from the fragmentary legislation. So that's another reason why we need one law that is for the whole country, so that we don't have this problem that if you register somewhere else, it can delay things massively. Which one? Other one I had. Jackie died last week, but it had a long time since was rescued in 2007. Only died last week, but we already found him without teeth. Many of them. I mean, some of them have even had their vocal cords cut because they can shout a lot, or their teeth removed and their fingers chopped. I mean, it is really terrible, the condition in which we found them, with no hair, very bad blood tests. This is for the ones that are privately owned. And of course, there are official figures for the ones in zoos, but we keep on finding them. I mean, even so accidentally that Cuellar, who is the treasurer of the Great Ape Project, he got a phone call from a group of chimpanzees that are in a roulotte in Valencia, in a place, all these grandchildren of the chimpanzees that Franco brought for tourists to have photographs in the beach. They have been lost through society. Many of them are still living in places. So he went there, and accidentally, he had been babysitted as a child by the circus woman who was breeding them. And the whole family lived off one chimpanzee that was in Martial Chronicles, the one television program, and that created all the income. But they had 15, privately, secretly, with the government not knowing, 15 chimpanzees, which they claim to love like their children. But one of them had been taxidermized and put on top of the TV. You don't do this with your children. So, I mean, there is still animals to be found, I'm sure, because we have already found so many. And, the ones that are in zoos, some of them are also in very, very bad conditions for all of these reasons that I've given. I think, it could be, it's not always the case that what we can say about why we should have human rights and we shouldn't do this to humans applies to other hominids. Sometimes it applies to them even more. No? I mean, I skipped the slide on suffering, but the fact that you don't understand why are you there, for how long are you going to be, all of that. If you're in the jungle and you fall off and you hurt yourself, you understand it. But all the things that we do to the great apes and the not understanding, while the humans do understand it, can really make it much more, the pain more terrifying and so on. So for me, it is a very clear case. And I hope that we can work together into making this law finally, because it's been too long since 1998, and we need to do that. And then it would be fantastic, because we have a terrible reputation worldwide about the treatment of animals for bullfighting and all that, and that would be one thing we do really well, and then they would be in France, in Italy, in other places, saying, okay, we should also have a great ape law if we do have apes captive. And so this thing would spread, and it would help also the ones in the wild, because that's not a separate thing. So long as there are zoos, they would be poaching. That's the way it is. And they said, oh, theaters does nothing for protection, because they can always put it into a terrible zoo, and then the other one say, oh, I rescue from a terrible zoo. So, so long as we have zoos, there's going to be poaching and killing and kidnapping and all these things. So I really hope that we can work together into making this happening soon. Okay, thank you.